I think the first, it's a lot of good advice that you can give young black potential farmers and farmers. The first thing I say is support black farmers. Get in the habit of spending your money with your own and building relationships with those farmers. But the second thing I would encourage is start small. You know, if you don't have any space, you have a living room, start with a bag in a corner. Start with some salad containers with some soil in it. Get your hands used to being in the soil and being somewhat dirty, but also get to understand how to grow things and build somewhat of your confidence up. You don't need a green thumb, you just need a brown thumb or black thumb. And that's you're gonna fail. I'm gonna tell you that right now. You're going to fail. You're going to have some struggles, you're gonna have some issues. There's no farmer that has farmed that's never had any challenges. You're gonna have challenges, you're gonna have failures, you're gonna have things that ain't gonna look good on Instagram or Facebook. But the key to any farmer is perseverance and persistence, and paying attention to what happened and not repeating those same mistakes, and trying to provide either technologies or innovations to really solve those issues. Next thing would be to mentor or visit or volunteer at some local farms, especially black farms. We need the help and support, and we need to get a lot of hands-on learning. If you haven't already, go to the USDA and get a farm number. Farmers have a great influence in this country, and the more black farmers we have on our roster, the more we can say we can really influence that influence. So get your farm number if you're in an apartment, if you're in a condo, if you're in public housing, if in a suburban home, if you're in the country, no matter where you're at, get your farm number. And if they ask you what you're doing, you're growing, greens, microgreens inside, or sprouts, or container gardening. And they're not going to ask you, because that's not, they don't need to know what you're doing. They just need to know you want to do it. And you got to remember that all these agencies work for us. Our taxpayer money goes to these agencies, USDA and any other federal agency and state agency, to support us. So you have to leverage this dollar. This dollar is a vote. And if you don't see your dollar as a vote, you're going to miss the vote. So, make sure that you leverage your dollar. Make sure that you get receipts when you go into the USDA, and they give you what's called receipts for service. Anything that you get done, get a receipt for it. Anything you don't get done, that they reject you for, get a receipt for it. You need to have documentation of all those things. We're at an age and a state right now where we have to document everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the more ugly and bad we can document now, the more good we can do later on, as we shed light on those things. Then, just get your hands in the soil. Start doing, no matter what your spiritual inclination is, start pouring libations. Start, walking barefoot. Start hugging trees. That means if you're in the city, if you're in the country, you're in the suburbs, you got trees at some point. You got some bare land somewhere. These are all things that don't require anything of you. You can do this as long as you got working arms, working legs. You can do this. And what this does, what it's done for me, is to get me better in tune with the earth. You can start to hear and feel and see differently as you start to hug trees, as you start to walk barefoot, as you start to notice the bees and the whiteflies and the gnats and the earthworms and the moles and the voles and all those other things that make this what it is. That, as African people, we're naturally spiritual. And the spirituality is based upon life and all its bigness, smallness, littleness, etc. And when you take your shoes off and walk barefoot, no socks, nothing, you start to feel life underneath your toes. Eventually. Initially, it's going to probably hurt a little bit and be uncomfortable, but later on, as you get used to this, you're going to start to see things a little differently. You start to understand this African side of growing and why we're so great at growing. Growing and agriculture is in our DNA. You go back to the Nile Valley, in those pyramids, on those papyrus, there's us doing farm work. We've all been through those history classes, and they talk about the Nile Valley civilization and us working with the Nile as it flowed and ebbed and tide. It's been with us, and it's what we do. It's the first profession, the oldest profession. The other one is not the oldest profession. You had to get some food before you got to that point. Agriculture and being a farmer is the oldest profession, and it's the first doctor. So when you start to understand, and we got to, I would encourage anybody starting out to really look at farming and agriculture as a noble profession. Read about George Washington Carver. Read about Booker T. Watley. Read about your grandmother and your grandfather and what they did and how they did. Read about Booker T. Washington. Read about, all these great agriculturists that came before us did so with a level of dignity and honor that they put on, even coming straight out of the enslavement period. They understood the value of this. Why you were hand selected from West Africa to come here and to grow rice, to grow cotton, to grow indigo, to grow sugarcane. They needed you. They needed your wisdom, they needed your knowledge, they needed what was in your DNA. And now we have a responsibility as new and beginning farmers to put that recharged DNA back into our own futures, our own legacies, our own inheritance to our children. So start now. If you're going to do it, start now. And if you have some land, plant some trees. Plant some walnut trees, plant some cherry trees. Those are gifts to your grandchildren. I have some walnut trees in my property that's probably about, I would dare say 75 to 100 years old. And I would dare say, those probably have value somewhere between $10,000 and $25,000 depending on, who comes and gets the quote, who wants to cheat me and who wants to, But, these things are critical and they never go out of style. As long as somebody's playing guitar, they can always need walnut. As long as somebody's going to have cabinets, they can always need cherry and walnut and maple and pine. So these things require nothing to do, especially if you have land. Plant some trees, plant some fruit trees for your children, plant some hardwood trees for your grandchildren. And then get with whatever farming program that you have in your state. I know Virginia is the Virginia State Small Farm Outreach Program. Get with Cooperative Extension. They usually have support mechanisms to provide for beginning farmers. Contact me. I have a beginner farmer grant. I can help walk you through the process. Contact Deron Chavis. He can help walk you through the process. But don't be scared to get started. Don't be scared to fail. And don't be scared not to post stuff on Instagram. It's okay if it ain't turned out right. You ain't got to put nothing on the Facebook or the Instagram or social media. We're not doing it for this. We're doing it for our legacy. I'm an 11th generation American, and we've been farming since we've been here in Virginia. And it would be a dishonor of me to my ancestors not to be back in agriculture, all of what they've done. And I encourage, our new and beginning farmers to definitely dig in, literally and figuratively, to get into this. Don't just do the work, do the purpose. Our purpose is aligned with working with the land and working with the soil.